Good evening, Byronwood, and here we are for Chapter 6 of Family Moomintroll. All the other videos are all there on the YouTube channel, so if you missed any, just go back and find them. They're all there. Chapter 6, in which Thingamy and Bob bringing a mysterious suitcase and followed by the Grogue come into the story, and in which the Snork leads a court case. Early one morning in the beginning of August, Thingamy and Bob came walking over the mountain and stopped just where Sniff had found the hobgoblin's hat. Thingamy wore a red cap and Bob carried an enormous suitcase. They had come a long way and were very tired. So they rested for a bit and looked down over the valley of the Moomins, where the smoke from Moomin House was rising between the silver poplars and plum trees. "Smoke," said Thingamy. "Folk means smood," said Bob, nodding. And they began to wander down to the valley, talking in the strange way that Thingamys and Bobs do talk. It isn't clear to everyone, but the main thing is that they understand each other. Very cautiously, they tiptoed up to the house and stood shyly by the front steps. "Do you think we could go in?" asked Thingamy. "It depends," said Bob. "Don't be frightened if they're gross and crumpy." "Shall we dock on the Nore?" suggested Thingamy. "But imagine if somebody comes out and screams." Just then, Moomin Mama stuck her head out of the window and shouted, "Coffee!" Thingamy and Bob were so dreadfully frightened that they jumped into the opening of the potato cellar. "Oh," said Moomin Mama with a start. "I believe those were mice disappearing into the cellar. Sniff, run down with a little milk for them." Then she caught sight of the suitcase, which stood by the steps. "Luggage too," thought Moomin Mama. "Dear me, then they've come to stay." And she went off to look for Moomin Papa to ask him to put up 2 more beds, very, very small ones. Meanwhile, Thingamy and Bob had dug themselves into the potatoes so that only their eyes could be seen, and there they waited in terror for what might happen to them. "Anyway, I can fell smood," muttered Thingamy. "Somebody's coming," whispered Bob. "Sot an hound." Do you know what sot an hound would mean?
No, not a sound.
Not a sound, that's it. The cellar door creaked, and at the top of the steps stood Sniff with a lantern in one hand and a saucer of milk in the other. "Hi, where are you?" he shouted. Thingamy and Bob crept still farther down and held on to each other in fright. "Will you have some milk?" said Sniff. "Don't make any totis," whispered Bob. "If you think I'm going to stand here half the day," said Sniff angrily, "you're mistaken. I suppose you don't know any better, silly old mice who haven't the sense to come in by the front door." "Milly old souse yourself," retorted Thingamy and Bob, who were seriously upset by this. "Oh, so they're foreigners," thought Sniff. "I'd better fetch Moomin Mama." And he locked the cellar door and ran into the kitchen. "Well, did they like the milk?" Moomin Mama asked. "They talk a foreign language," said Sniff. "Nobody can understand what they say." "What's it like?" asked Moomintroll, who was shelling peas with a hemulin. "Milly old souse yourself," said Sniff. Moomin Mama sighed. "This is going to be a nice mix-up," she said. "How shall I be able to find out what they want for pudding on their birthday, or how many pillows they like to have?" "We'll soon learn their language," said Moomintroll. "It sounds easy." "I think I understand them," said Hemulin reflectively. "Didn't they tell Sniff he was a silly old mouse?" Sniff blushed and tossed his head. "You haven't talked to them yourself if you're so clever," he said. So the Hemulin lumbered away to the cellar steps and called out kindly, "Welcome to Human Mouse." Thingamy and Bob stuck their heads out of the potato pile and looked at him. "Mere's some hilk," continued the Hemulin. Then they scampered up the steps and into the drawing room. I've got a picture of the Hemulin holding a saucer of milk out for Thingamy and Bob. I can't remember which one had the red hat. Can you? No. Thingamy. Thingamy had the red hat. There they are. Thingamy wore a red cap. Yes, I've just spotted it in there. Thank you. You were right. Sniff looked at them and noticed that they were much smaller than he was, so he felt kinder and said condescendingly, "Hello, nice to see you." "Thanks, yame to sue," said Thingamy. "Did I fell smood?" inquired Bob. "What do they say now?" asked Moomin Mama. "They're hungry," said Hemulin, "but they still don't seem to take the Sniff." Give them my compliments, then, said Sniff hotly, and say that never in my life have I seen two such herring faces. And now I'm going out. Piff is sneevish, said Hemulin. Nake no totus. Anyway, come and have some coffee, said Moomin Mama nervously, and she showed Thingamy and Bob out to the veranda. The Hemulin, who was very proud of his new rank as interpreter, followed them. And that was how Thingamy and Bob came to live at the Moomin house. They didn't make much noise, spent most of the time hand in hand, and never lost sight of their suitcase. But towards dusk on that first day, they began to get very worried. They ran frantically up and down stairs several times, and eventually hid under the drawing-room carpet. "What's the matter?" asked the Hemulin. "What's the matter?"
What's the matter?
"Oh, the Groke is coming," whispered Bob. "Groke? What's that?" asked the Hemulin, getting a bit frightened. "Tig and Brim and Caribou," said Bob. "Lock the door against her." The Hemulin ran to Moomin Mama and told her the awful news. "They say that a big and grim and terrible Groke is coming here. We must lock all the doors tonight." "But I don't think any of the doors have keys, except the cellar," said Moomin Mama in a worried voice. "Dear me, it's always the same with visitors." And she went to talk to Moomin Papa about it. "We must arm ourselves and move the furniture in front of the door," declared Moomin Papa. "A large Groke like that may be very dangerous. I shall set an alarm clock in the drawing-room, and Thingamy and Bob can sleep under my bed." But Thingamy and Bob had already crept into a bureau drawer and refused to come out. Moomin Papa shook his head and went to the woodshed for his blunderbuss. The evenings were already beginning to draw in. The glowworms were out with their little torches, and the garden was filled with black velvet shadows. The wind soughed drearily through the trees, and Moomin Papa felt an uncanny feeling creeping over him as he went down the path. Suppose this Groke were hiding behind a bush? What did she look like, and above all, how big was she? When he came in again, he put the sofa in front of the door and said, "We must leave the light on all night. You must be on the alert, and Snufkin must sleep indoors." It was terribly exciting. Then he knocked on the bureau door and said, "We shall protect you." But there was no answer, so he pulled the drawer out to see if Thingamy and Bob had already been kidnapped. However, they slept peacefully, and beside them lay their suitcase. "Anyway, let's go to bed," said Moomin Papa. "But arm yourselves, all of you." With much noise and chatter, they went off to their rooms, and presently silence reigned in Moomin House, while a solitary kerosene lamp burned on the drawing-room table. It was midnight, then 1 o'clock struck. A little after 2, the muskrat woke up and wanted to get out of bed. He staggered sleepily downstairs and stopped in amazement in front of the sofa which stood across the door. "What an idea!" he muttered, trying to drag it away. But then, of course, the alarm clock that Moomin Papa had put there started ringing. In a moment the house was filled with screams, shots, and the stamping of feet as everybody came rushing down to the drawing-room armed with axes, spades, rakes, stones, knives, and scissors, and stood staring at the muskrat. "Where's the Groke?" demanded Moomintroll. "Oh, it was only me," said the muskrat peevishly. "Just wanted to look at the stars. Forgot all about you, stupid Groke." "And go outside at once," said Moomintroll, "but don't do it again." And he threw the door open. Then they saw the Groke. Everybody saw her. She sat motionless on the sandy path at the bottom of the steps, and stared at them with round, expressionless eyes. She was not particularly big, and didn't look dangerous either, but you felt that she was terribly evil, and would wait forever. And that was awful. Nobody plucked up enough courage to attack. She sat there for a while, and then slid away into the darkness. Where she'd been sitting, the ground was frozen. And there she is. The Snork shut the door and shook himself. "Poor Thingamy and Bob," he said. "Hemel, look and see if they're awake." They were. "Has she gone?" asked Thingamy. "Yes, you can peep in Sleece now," replied the Hemulin. Thingamy sighed a little and said, "Thank goodness." And they pulled the suitcase with them as far into the drawer as possible and went to sleep again. "Can we go back to bed now?" asked Moomin Mama, putting down her axe. Yes, Mother, said Moomintroll. Snufkin and I will stand guard till the sun gets up. But put your handbag under your pillow to be on the safe side. Then they sat alone in the drawing room and played poker till the morning, and no more was heard of the Groke that night. And we will find out tomorrow if they hear about the Groke the next day. See you then.